Hello. Hola. Who
All
are
right.
we? What's happening?
What?
That's the energy of the show. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
You got it, right? It's my topic.
Okay, so we're going to dive into burnout today.
It's not relevant at all to me.
No, nobody's talking about this or looking at it or experiencing it. And it got stimulated from an article that my partner found, and it had a podcast, and it was this exploration via a psychologist of like what creates burnout, what burnout is technically, and the things that we need to start looking at in order to change it. And so, as you and I were sort of bashing around this topic, what flipped out of my mouth was like, well, answer is the source for burnout. And so maybe we'll like go backwards from there because like
Yeah, like what? What the fuck does that
what
mean?
are you talking about?
Answer?
Oh my god. Well, okay, I guess first and foremost, like is burnout a term that you actually had in your library of terms as a psychologist?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And but I get it was spoken more from a place of just like doing too much. That was the
Okay.
answer.
Okay.
It's burnout is when you're doing too much, and I get that's like a lot of this reality in the sense of people needing to take vacations from their jobs because they're
Uh-huh.
doing too
Right.
much. The 40-hour
Right.
week is too, you know what I mean? So at some point
Yeah.
you need your 2 week vacation so you don't burn out.
Like
Like,
create
and
a
that's
life
as
you
far as
don't
it went.
need, which is where create a life you don't need a vacation from came from, right? Like,
Yes.
ah, yeah,
Mhm.
interesting. It's so funny because for me personally, I couldn't relate to the term. Like it's been in my world quite a lot right now. We're starting a new company called Workplace Stress Relief, and really the whole thrust of the company is to introduce organizations to access bars because if there was a tool that ever handles all the
Mm,
different signs and symptoms of stress, it's
yeah.
access bars. So we've been looking at this burnout topic. Where am I going with this? I couldn't relate to it. So is it a term that you've had personal like you is it personal to, what
I
do
was
you
gonna,
know
I
about
know.
this?
I was gonna say. I was like, how have you never experienced burnout? Are you
Well, I
sure?
don't know
Like,
if it's true that I've never experienced it, but
yeah,
I heard the term and I'm like, I don't know what this is. Like, so does it work for you, that term? Tell me
I mean,
more.
yeah, okay. So I get like kind of because lately, I if I were to term where I'm at, it would be
Okay.
some burnout, but not from doing too much. More of just mm, to me, it's like doing a lot of things where it's just like the energy dies, like and it like hits a wall or something like that, where the energy is not continuing to flow or it's not with super ease. Like I'm muscling through because I can
Yeah.
really lean on that
Yeah.
muscle of like go. And I mean, I think, I know you're similar in the sense of like you can generate like content and creation and work and stuff like very quickly. And
Yeah.
so I just get when I do too much of the stuff where it's not ease or fun or I'm not following really the energy, then I'm like burnout, like not
Okay,
feeling
cool.
creative. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I can definitely pinpoint that. But so I guess my most recent experience with this, where I would have called it burnt out, was last year for me. And like, we've talked in other
Mm,
episodes how last year was for me. It was hard. We moved to another country. I guess what happened is we made all these choices, and then there was all this um, like new input that I didn't hadn't practiced. Like I felt like I had no
yeah.
tools for. And simultaneous to that, I was still expecting myself to basically go to work every day, which I can kind of see how that would, if you worked for somebody else, it would be very similar. Like your life is changing dynamically. You've just had a baby, like, or whatever, divorce, somebody's died, some massive life shift, a pandemic hits. Like for example, in the article that we read this morning, it was the Prime Minister of New Zealand who's actually stepping down from her role because the last 5 years she's dealt with a terrorist attack on the country, the pandemic, and
Jeez.
some
Yeah.
other massive thing. And she's like, you know what? I just don't have any more gas in the tank. She actually used those words. So yeah, I guess last year for me would have been the closest to burnout. And what I had to do was start asking, like, I had to start really asking, like, where did the joy go? Where did my joy go and where can
Hmm.
I find it? I had to really start asking myself a different question. And that's what started to stimulate the ability to create from something else. It's like I really kind of have the same activities, the same I don't know, vision. You know, as an entrepreneur, I know I'm creating that for myself, but it wasn't really that the externals changed. It was
Right.
that inside of me, I chose something different and started interacting with the world in a different way. So I'm curious, like for you, like,
Yeah, for me, I'm hearing that as like you be different. Like you're
yeah.
functioning from a different place,
But I did
maybe?
have to choose it. Like it wasn't
Yeah,
like, you know, I had
it
to make a
just
different
happened.
choice. No, it fucking didn't just happen.
Where's the light switch?
Oh my
Where's the
God.
motherboard? Show me.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe that's important to know about something like burnout because it isn't, I think when we get ourselves so far into something like it's like you get yourself so far into a relationship that really isn't working for you, for example, right?
Hmm.
And by the time you've gotten that far, you're already to the point where you're like, I guess I just need a different relationship. Like my picker's
Hmm.
broken, you know, like
Hmm.
so maybe similar to burnout where you like get so far down the road and this in this particular job or the situation, you're like, oh, I think I just need something different. I need a vacation. I need a different job. Something
Yeah.
outside of me has to change because clearly look at how unhappy I am. And I wonder if it's that, or if it, I mean, it could be that, but I wonder what else I had. I mean, for me, it was a choice to be different moving forward. And
Hmm.
that was just day by day, moment by moment.
Well, you had said last, I don't know, whenever ago, that things work until they don't. And there's something to that effect.
I'm
And I
starting
was
a
kind
very
of like,
dramatic quote book very soon. Pick it
you
up at
should. They
Amazon.
like, they pop out, like with these things. And so I was like, that because a lot of people I get teach like, well, discover your purpose, find your purpose, like, and then you'll be
Mm.
fulfilled, as if it's like this finite non-living thing. Like once you find it, then you're done, you're good to
The
go.
answer. Oh, that's where we went. Yeah. So the
Yeah.
answer is your purpose. And once you find it, you're all good. No more need to do anything else. You're living it.
Exactly, you're done. And it's kind of like what I thought, like when I quit ballet, it was like, okay, well, I just need to find the thing because ballet really wouldn't have taken me all that far, like age wise and whatever. Okay, then I found psychology, and okay, there I'm good. I'm working for the
I'm
VA, a
done.
job
You're
I want.
done.
I'm done. I'm done. I got
The
500K in
answer.
student loans. I'm done. I'm gonna make this work, kind of thing, Like
Right. Okay.
seriously.
That's a great example, though, of like powering
Hmm.
through something. I remember when you and I first kind of met in person, we actually had that conversation.
Yes.
You're like, I want to quit my, we're sitting at a bar having a drink, and you're like, oh my
Hmm.
God. And then I hate my job, but I have to,
Yeah.
but I have to stay
Yeah.
because
500K.
here 500K, yeah, in student loans. And I was like,
Hmm.
so here I am like learning all these possibilities. And I'm like, well, what else is possible that you haven't considered? And you're like, I can't let go of this. I have to,
I was like, what?
but you were intrigued, but you were like, no,
Yes.
but
Hmm.
so then I guess like just step four straight, like it basically got to a point where you're just like, no, I actually am going to choose something different, but you had to choose something different in order for it to change.
Hmm. Yeah, well, exactly. And for me, it was to work for myself, which I had been pinged forever. But it was still like I'm getting now 2 years in or whatever, and creating content for 4 or 5 years. The same thing. It's like, oh, I found something that works. Let me just
I
keep
found
doing
the
it.
next
And
answer.
then that didn't happen either. And I was like, wait a second. I thought I found the next right thing.
No. So there must be another right thing out there somewhere.
There is. And I will keep looking for it. I will find it, and then I'll be done and good to
Again.
go again.
Until you need the next thing.
So I
Maybe.
guess the point is
You're never
stop
done.
going to conclusion. It's never done. And if you're burnt out, then it's like, what else could you choose?
Totally. I actually think that it's never done is huge. I don't think
Yeah.
we even get how huge that is. I remember the moment where I had that epiphany with money. So, okay, so now that we're talking about it, I can see all kinds of different areas of my life where I burnt myself out. So, with money, for example, there's so many stories, but let me try to be succinct about this one story. So, I remember this moment where I really recognized that I was waiting for this money thing to be done. I'm like,
it's done,
okay,
right?
it's done, right? Like I did the thing, I read the book, I used the tools, and like we're done, right? And it's simultaneously the next second going, oh wait, money's never done. It's like a continual, constant. And for a second, I was tired. It's like, at some point, I don't have to do this anymore.
I want to take a nap.
Let me off the ride.
Yes. Exactly.
I guess what we're really talking about then is like the creation of living, where you're just never, it's never done. You're always in creation. And maybe we just don't know that.
Yeah, I get, well, it's like everything's like hygiene. Like that's how I was talking about the nervous system. It's like you don't just regulate
Right.
once and you're done. Or even like refocusing your thoughts or how, however you want
We're
to
good
see
now.
it. It's just no, no, I got 10 therapy sessions, I'm good. It's like, no, it's all hygiene. It's all lifelong until we die.
I
And
want to
then
do an access
probably
consciousness clearing on that so bad. And everything that brings up or lets down. Clearing.
seriously.
Right, wrong, good, bad, bad,
Yeah.
bad, learn, towards, boys, focus, clearingstatement.com. You can go there.
Bippity boppity boo.
But it is interesting the energy that brings up, because the energy it brought up when you said it was this like, oh fuck. Like, this is
Yeah.
never over. Huh. So,
Well, to me, it's like, where do I find the relaxation in that? Because I go into like, but I just want to get it right, or I just want to figure it out. Like that's where I go to, and
assuming
then I
that,
can't relax.
yeah, right. Because then the assumption is like, if you figure it out, then you'll be done.
I'll be done. Yeah.
So it's this whole thing of wanting to be done.
Damn
I'm like
it.
kind of getting it as we're talking.
I know.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I guess what's really exciting about being done with, okay, actually, I'm getting pieces of, okay. I guess what's exciting about being done with something. So, for example, like being done with a relationship or being done with a job is that you can then go looking for what's new. And what's new is
Mm-hmm.
always exciting. And what's new is always interesting. And it's engaging again. And okay, so
Honeymoon period.
my God, so much awareness. Okay. So maybe it's starting to look at, if you're listening to this and you feel burnt out, it's like, how much have you gotten into the maintenance of your life rather than the creation of your life? Because those are two very, 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 very different things. And when I look at all the different times that I've wound up on some balcony in my house crying, it's because I'm always like, I've been maintaining and maintaining and maintaining, hoping that will do the thing, not realizing that what I wasn't choosing was to choose and create the thing. And the thing is your life. The thing is living. That's really what we're talking about. We're talking about creating living, whether you're working in a job or you're working for yourself or whatever it is. And man, it's so easy to kind of go unconscious and like start working on autopilot, like even content creation. Would you say?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking about. Because it's just like, I think we go into like control too. I just need to control this. And like, that's part of my maintenance thing. And with content, I felt like I'm bored. I'm like, what am I saying here? Is this even what I want to say? You know what I mean? It's just like, okay, it looks pretty. It's nice. It's informative. And that's where I get the energy, is where it feels like maintenance and not like in the mad scientist is what I'm seeing.
Exactly.
And
to discover something else, you have to mad scientist. You have to explore. Like I just recently mad scientist with my whole office in life, and I like have this now new keyboard and audio setup and everything. And because I got this idea,
fancy.
so fancy. This microphone is so fancy. But I was creating, and I was like, I want to do energy pulls, but I want them to be epic sound. And like, how can I create that? So I went. But it was interesting because like once I finally got it set up, and it took me much longer than I thought, like 2 weeks of like learning and YouTube videos, and like I have a PhD in audio production now that I didn't know I needed. Honestly, I felt done. I was like, okay, we're done. And I'm like, but we still have the things.
I have to create the thing.
But what was interesting was there was all this energy at the fringe of that was like, oh my God, but I'm not ready, but it could go wrong. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm avoiding with mad scientisting. Because it felt scary. It felt terrifying. And that thing we've talked about on other shows where I'm like, I'm going to do this wrong. I'm going to fuck up. Like this, nobody else is doing this. I don't have any reference points for this. I don't even know exactly where I'm going. I just know that I'm going to do and I ended up and so my way around that crazy energy is just to choose anyway. And usually I have to kind of choose at the last minute to kind of force myself over the edge. But that's that thing of mad science, like with your content, you're gonna have to go all mad scientist for a bit and like be all weird and shit,
blow shit up.
Blow shit up.
I mean, that's all I could see. It's just because it's like, how many trials did Einstein have before he figured out the light bulb? I mean,
according to one book I read, it was 1,000.
Oh,
you know, that book was right.
Einstein, right? Yeah.
No, that was, I don't know if Thomas Edison.
No, no. Right? It was like a lot of trials, a
There was
lot of
a lot.
trials that were not light bulbs until we got to light bulb. And so, how interesting is that? Would I be willing to just not make it so significant, the outcome, like such a big deal? It's such a big deal that I have to figure it out and be done. Like the stakes are so high.
And the stakes are high because people are watching, because
Yeah.
other people's
Conclusions,
opinion, like,
judgment.
yeah, 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 yeah. Wow. So, okay. So, like, you know, and all of you guys listening are in somewhere different with this, right? Some of you are
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, some of you work at a job. I mean, it's like starting where you are. But I think, oh man, that thing that's important to mention too, though, you can only start where you are. Like, you start where you are,
Mm,
literally,
hmm.
right where you are. And if nothing, if you didn't have to change anything, if you didn't have to leave anybody, leave your job, anything, and you could just start right with who you are, where you are, what different question could you start to ask that would stimulate new awareness and new possibilities?
I was looking at like to shift the energy, just then driving a different way to yoga class or something, even if it's like a different turn, just
This is
something
it.
to shake up the kind of
The maintenance.
mental, yeah, maintenance, just to keep it interesting. Otherwise, then we get what? Bored, uninspired, and then we're trying to continue to force action. And
Yeah.
content's just a great example, right? Because it's like needs to be continually created. And it's all the force that I get then is what creates the I'm tired, I'm fatigued, I'm uninspired, I don't care to choose,
Yeah.
I'm depressed.
Yeah. And I could see this really easily occurring in a job scenario where you take the job and you're really excited about what you think it is, and they're excited to have you. It's like anything new, right? Honeymoon phase. And then you get into the job and it's not really what you thought it was going to be. And they have
Mm-hmm.
expectations that, and maybe it's even changed over the years, and maybe work has piled up. And so I think too, another thing to really look at with this is like, what's changed? You know, what was
Mm-hmm.
it and what's changed? And is it possible to create something different with what it is now? Or do you need to look at completely changing the scenario? Because, you know, I mean, this occurs in relationships too, like where you've just kind of been doing it things in the same way. And I mean, I can use my relationship. We, we went through this pattern where every 2 to 3 days we were like not talking to each other. So we've been kind of aggressive at each other this last year. It's changing so much right now. But so, and it was just like kind of what we were doing. It sort of
Yeah.
became this thing that we were doing. And I was finally like, okay, if we weren't doing this, can we change this? Like, is this changeable, or is this just kind of what we are? Do we
Yeah.
just kind of like
Yeah.
look at this? And I remember having that conversation with him, and he's like, no, we could do something different. But he and I kind of always look at that together. Now, sometimes that's not available, but I do think that's worth looking at. Like, can this change? Can you just start new tomorrow and be different? Have a different conversation, bring different ideas, wear different socks? Like, you know, or do you need to like, make a total change? So that's another possibility.
Yeah, well, and I get there's also the allowance of just a break. Like, could you just take a pause, just take a break, or whatever space that looks like? And for me, it's just been not posting feed content or creating TikToks in the past couple days. So I'm like, I just need a break. I just need a break. I just need to pause, take a step back, and for me, in this point of view, it's also not consuming as much content because it's like mudding my awareness because I'm like, oh, I heard this and I heard that and I heard this and I heard a little, and I'm like kind of all over the place rather than just wait a second, what do I know? Am I really creating from the energy I'm aware of versus just kind of all this other stuff, which is like feeling, and I get for me that's what's creating a lot of the heaviness. So what if you're just an allowance of like just taking the pause in that sense, depending on what that is, that you don't need to figure it out right now, that you could just allow the space for it to drop in.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
Yeah.
what, because I've been doing so much force. So now I'm like, okay, the force is not the vibe right now. Okay, let me just
Forrest is
give my,
not with me anymore.
no, let me put a little bit more gas in the tank so then I can approach
Yeah.
this differently, maybe take a different route to be the mad scientist and just bash around for a little bit.
Yeah, and I think you said really the key thing, which is that once you get to the point where you're burnt out, you've been forcing and forcing and forcing things forward, and you haven't paused,
Mm-hmm.
relaxed, let yourself fill the well.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the book The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron
Mm.
talks about this so elegantly. She's like, when when you first wake up, do your morning pages, like that gets your voice and your energy moving. And then take yourself on an artist date once a week because you're an artist of your life. Fill the well. Um, and then there was something else she said that was great. So that's another great book. But
Yeah.
it's like there at some point the force is not sustainable. It's
Mm-mm.
just not sustainable. It is something's going to give, and usually what gives is us.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you're in the early stages of this, what I would do personally is and add another question to your. I would do pause. I love the pause,
Yeah.
and add another question of like, if I were really including me here, like, what would I choose, and how could I create this going forward? Because I've been creating as if I'm an unlimited. This is interesting. I've been creating as if I'm an unlimited resource, and in one sense, you
Mm.
are, but you
Mm-hmm.
have to be willing to include your body, and you have
Yeah.
to be willing to include your being, and that can show up really different when you're including those things than when you're not. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, and last year when I was kind of in more flow with it, I was taking like a walk every morning. Like that was my exercise, right? And I realized I got a lot of awareness, clarity during that time. That's where I was just like, ooh, I'll create this content. Ooh, I'll create this offer. Like a lot came to me then. Now, lately, I've been going to a class and going to hot yoga and Pilates. And although I am loving that because my body was requiring more fitness, I'm missing the spaciousness of the walk.
and
Like
the
I like,
movement.
yeah. So I'm like, oh, I still require the walk. I still require the walk. Maybe it's at the end of my day now or something, right? If I'm going to class in the beginning. So I'm looking at how could I incorporate that with ease because it just provided so much for me. So I'm just looking at things that I maybe let go of, activities, whether it be journaling or meditation or whatever you used to do, salt bath, something that was really nurturing for you,
Yep.
right? And that's where I'm kind of like, oh, I've kind of let those things go. So how could I, even though I'm adding doing other things, it's like kind of gain some clarity now on like what is really giving me the most return for my time.
Totally. And I just added back in the piano, which is a huge
Mm,
nurturing element for me too.
hmm.
So I totally see the parallels. Yeah. So hopefully you guys got something out of this. It's our non-clinical discussion of this and how we've navigated it. And if you loved it, share it with a burnt out friend.
Because we won't be clinical, don't worry.
Promise.